There's a lot of people out there who have this notion or this idea that the harder they work, the more money they'll make. And it's this cycle that seems to have worked over time, but nobody really talks about the consequences.
In my 20s, I wore hustle like a badge of honor. I did all the things and I got the degrees and I got the teaching job and I taught yoga on the side and I was doing private yoga and teaching in the highest paid school division in Alberta. And I was just like thinking I was checking all of the boxes and I was exhausted and hitting burnout. Do you want to continue believing that we have to work hard to make more money?
Okay, so most people chase money by working incredibly hard. They look and read all the books possible to achieve wealth as quick as they can. And today, I'm bringing on my dear friend, Nicole Crone, who is actually going to tell you how to make more money without working harder, without working and learning the tactics that you think you need to learn to create all the wealth that you want. She's here to talk about her work, My Aligned Purpose, and helping you scale and grow in your business from a place of purpose, passion, and alignment. Nicole, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks, Mike. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, let's get right into it because I think this really flips the script for a lot of people. And you and I were talking before recording today that there's a lot of people out there who have this notion or this idea that the harder they work, the more money they'll make. And it's this cycle that seems to have worked over time, but nobody really talks about the consequences, which is burnout, fatigue, frustration, stress. And I'm curious from your perspective regarding alignment, what does it really mean to make money through alignment rather than this grind that everybody's been doing?
Yeah, the way that I see it, with the example that you use, like, work harder, make more money, is that a truth? Sure, for the people that believe it. And I think that we all have a set of beliefs around every area of our life, especially with money. And then the question that I started to ask myself years ago was, do I want to believe this? Is there something else that would feel better than believing I have to work to the grind to make more money? And I had that experience. In my 20s, I wore hustle like a badge of honor. And I did all the things and I got the degrees and I got the teaching job and I taught yoga on the side and I was doing private yoga and teaching in the highest paid school division in Alberta. And I was just like thinking I was checking all of the boxes and I was exhausted and hitting burnout. And I didn't actually at the time have proof that there could be another way. And it wasn't until other circumstances in my life happened that I said, I'm going to actually try taking a year off working. I'm okay with the pay cut. I'll figure that out later. And I'm going to go overseas. So when I was 30 years old, I moved to Australia for a year on a working holiday visa. And I noticed a very key difference between the people I noticed in Australia to my colleagues in the staff room at school. So my colleagues in the staff room at school, yes, we were all in the range of 85,000 to 120,000 of what we were earning. Comfortable. We were tired. We were burnt out. We were resentful. We were all of the things. And then I moved to Australia and I'm in the Gold Coast and I'm, right there in Mermaid Waters. And I'm seeing all of these people work from their laptops and sip their coffee and then go for a walk. And when I looked at that, I thought, wow, they seem like they're living a really light lifestyle. Like it doesn't seem like there's pressure to rush to the next thing. And I asked myself, at that moment in time, like, what is different? Like, what would be different for them? And I really started to get into this concept of belief work and identity work and alignment work. And a lot of that came from yoga teacher training. And what I noticed is that money is just energy. And I know that that's a hard concept for a lot of people to wrap their head around, but it could be a whole other podcast episode. But when you really start to believe and know that money is just an energetic resource, I could have a stack of $1,000 bills sitting on my table right now. It's just paper until I give it power, until I do something with it. So I started to notice that these people seem to be living on purpose, in purpose, on alignment, happy, joyful. They weren't trying to work 12-hour days. They were going to the beach afterwards. What do I need to believe? Could I believe that that's available for me too? I didn't believe that right away. I thought like, no, I've got to hustle, I've got to move around. So how to make money from alignment? It starts with, what do you want to believe? Do you want to believe that from a more aligned place that you could make more money? Do you want to continue believing that we have to work hard to make more money? That's the first place I start with people when I'm coaching them is, what do you actually believe about money? And do you want to continue believing that? And then they're always like, no, 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 of course I want to believe something different, but how?
Yeah, of
Well,
course.
then we dive into the work.
Right. Yeah, and I think the belief thing is really fascinating, because when you tell people, well, if you just are aligned, meaning you found your purpose or your passion, and then you leverage that into creating a business that mimics your passion and purpose, then the money just starts flowing in. It seems easy. It seems pretty, self-explanatory. But it sounds like to me what you were saying is that you started off with the question, which is not the business, but what belief do I need to have around money in order for me to cultivate that? And I really want you to expand on that for us, because the money piece with beliefs to me is really a fascinating conversation, especially with entrepreneurs. And what do you see with the entrepreneurs that you work with around their money beliefs, even from the highest scale of profitability in business?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think it's so incredibly fascinating. We have our year-long mastermind, Aligned CEO Method. I'm working with 45 individuals at a time, all at different income levels, different types of businesses, brick and mortar, online, in-person, product, services, it doesn't matter. And everybody comes in with a set of beliefs around money. And the way I see it play out in business is perhaps being afraid to increase their prices. Am I worth charging that? Do I know people who will pay that? It hasn't worked out for me before to have a higher price point. Maybe I should just have low ticket. And when I hear all of these things, when I think about business and money beliefs, again, I think about, well, we have to start to look at, is there proof that it can be done another way? Like, do you know people that charge a higher price point with the same offer or service that you do and it works for them? 99% of the time people are like, yeah, but it doesn't work for me because you don't believe it will.
Can you finish that sentence for me? Like, what's the because? I'm really curious about that.
I've tried it before. I'm putting the offer out there and nobody's biting or whatever it might be.
That's fascinating.
And then, within a couple minutes of conversation, I'm like, yeah, I can feel you are not confident at that price point. So because you're not confident, you're not like emulating confidence, and therefore I'm not intrigued to buy from you. Everything is energy. Sometimes it doesn't matter what somebody is selling. I am just so magnetized to their energy. I'm like, you could sell me something I do not need, but I love your energy. You have the confidence and the belief that what you are selling is going to give me a transformation or change my life or be so impactful. I want that. I don't want to buy from somebody who's like, yeah, I don't know, my product's okay, but you could get it from my competitor. No, that's not attractive. It's not magnetic. And so I think when it comes to the limiting beliefs, the biggest ones I hear from business owners are, yeah, I can't charge that. It won't work for me. The economy, people aren't paying that. And I'm always getting people to look for proof of what is available on the other side, of what they want is actually available. And again, coming back to, do you want to believe that? Because you can keep believing that for the rest of your career, that people don't pay high ticket to work with you, your offer. Or actually another common thing I hear, Mike, because we work with a lot of doctors and acupuncturists and naturopaths and these people who have regulated governing bodies that say, I can only charge this much for an acupuncture session, or I'm a doctor, so I can't be making sales to my patients. You can have a podcast, you can have a digital product, you can help them in other ways, maybe not in a clinical setting in your office. You can't sell them to get on your email list, but there are other ways. And when we meet new doctors and we're able to paint the picture and the proof that we do it with all these other doctors, they're like, oh, I didn't know that was available. So I think like showing proof for people and getting them to actively decide that they want to believe something different changes business owners' whole perception around money.
Yeah, and I think the identity piece is really big too, especially because for you working with those types of professions where there is a regulating governing body and they're telling you like what the quote rules are or what the regulations are, when it really comes down to it, and you were speaking about energy earlier, I think the one thing that I find that's really key in all of this is the identity piece. And I would love for you to talk about the role that identity truly plays in what money is to people and how they create it. And before we get into that, I do want to preface that the identity piece, I think, from what you're speaking about, is one of the most powerful things that you can do when it comes to building wealth and creating that business that you want. And I think you said it really interesting enough that the energy that you have and the belief system you have like really fosters that identity. So please tell us more about how identity specifically creates more wealth, especially if you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And I think identity impacts every area of our life. And when I'm working with somebody and they are really unsure of where to even start or what that means or how to look at their identity or shift it, the first place I like to guide people is I believe and our identities are made up of our standards and looking at the stories we tell ourselves about our standards. So if my standard, oftentimes when I'm working with clients and we're talking about money, I will have them tell me, what do you absolutely not accept? Like, you cannot make less than what this year? And if they're like, I cannot make less than $250,000 this year, I'm like, okay, so you've got a floor. And what would you love to make this year? What is your dream this year? They're like, I cannot see making more than 750,000. Like, I cannot see that. I don't know how it's possible. Okay, so we've got your floor and your ceiling.
Yeah.
So let's just call those your standards. Now we have to start to unpack what is the story that you tell yourself about what would happen if you made less than $250,000. And what's the story you tell yourself about why you can't see past $750,000. And we're going to actively work on making your ceiling your floor. What if you believed you could not make less than $750,000? There was no way. In the same way that you don't believe you could survive off less than 250, we're going to make your identity start to become the woman or the man or whomever you identify as, that the new standard you set for yourself is that I cannot make less than $750,000. And then all the stories that come up with that: imposter syndrome. Will people think I'm better than them? It hasn't been done before. So then again, we get to unpack those stories and realize that our stories are kind of just like a ongoing thing that we've been telling ourselves throughout our life. And oftentimes I'll get to this place with clients where I'm like, are you sick of telling yourself that story? Like, is it getting kind of old? And they're like, yes, I don't want to believe this anymore. Okay, there it is. It's the belief. What would you rather believe instead? What do you need to believe so that $750,000 is your new standard? And then when we get to like what they want to believe, I'm often working with people on a bridge belief of, okay, so right now, if you cannot truly say, I'm going to make $750,000 this year and believe that, like it just won't work, then energetically it's going to be misaligned. So the bridge belief has got to be something along the lines of, I'm excited to be building a $750,000 a year business. I'm loving the journey of becoming a millionaire, like whatever it might be, but we've got to create the bridge, because if you don't actively believe what you're telling yourself when people say affirmations and all these things, then you're not going to believe it. And then nothing's going to change. So we've got to create some sort of subconscious bridge for the mind so that it can actually get on board with this being a possibility.
I love the standards and like that container that you just built where like the floor is, I can't do without 250, or I can't go lower than that. And then I can't see. I love that range because it also is a great segue into the practicality aspect of money, which is how most of us, I would assume, learn about money is the practicality sense. You learned your beliefs from your parents. You got that identity and your story around money with your parents. And one of the things that you guys do specifically with your work is that you take this practical aspect and then you take this like spiritual, energetic, call it woo manifestation, and then you kind of put it in a blender and out pops this system and this method that you've had that really helps women entrepreneurs really harness that. And I do believe that the people that you're working with finally see that when they can take the 3D with the 4D, mix it all together, there's something that gets unlocked on that level. And I think my next question with what you were talking about, the range and then the belief system, is I could see practicality actually being a conflict for you, because you're trying to get them to reprogram the subconscious and deal with money as belief identity turns into the real world. But then there's people who may, like these doctors you were using earlier, the acupuncturists and the naturopaths, who say, well, I have to adhere to these standards. I can only charge this, which becomes the practicality. How do you navigate that practicality aspect that could be seen as a conflict in your work?
Yeah, I think that by nature, anyone who comes into my energetic sphere knows that I lean more towards the anything is possible, we'll figure out a way. Practicality, reality are not really words I love or beliefs I hold on to. And I know not everybody's wired like I am. So the beautiful thing about my aligned purpose and aligned CEO method specifically is that Kayla and I are actually wired very differently. Kayla is very practical and data driven in her thinking. And I'm very like, woo, up here in space, anything is possible. So when people come to us, they're like, I love this because I've worked with manifestation, mindset, visionary people, but there was no grounded strategy, practicality to this. Or I've worked in containers and it's been very masculine, very numbers driven, but like I can't see a bigger picture vision. And then they come to us and it's this beautiful blend that somehow the universe got Kayla and I to meet together and create this program for the people who are craving the practical, like, how am I going to make this work? The how, if they don't want to go into more of a, I don't know, energetic, vibrational, anything is possible state. Right. Kayla has her spreadsheets and she's like, let's talk the math here. This is what you have for sale. Here's the, I can't see past this number. We're going to plug that in as the floor. Okay, so if you need to make $750,000 this year, and this is your offer, and this is how many people you have in your audience or whatever, those numbers will not work. Practically, they will not work. So what are you going to do to either increase the people who are in front of you, increase your price, which then freaks people out because then it comes back to their money thing. I don't want to increase my price. And then it's a huge cycle. And then when it comes to the doctors and the people who have the regulated governing bodies, we're like, okay, there's the work around this. What we've seen the majority of our clients do, like who are clinical counselors and doctors and these sorts of things, is you have two separate websites. Like if we're just talking the legalities, practicality of it, you have two separate websites. You're a corp. And so you're not a sole proprietor. You've got a corporation, and on one website, you have your little acronym next to your name. You have ND, MD, whatever it might be next to your name. And people can use their, I'm in Canada, so we've got our health benefits. People can use their health benefits and get your counseling packages and write it off and pay for it with their healthcare. And then on your Instagram or on your website, it toggles over to, Nicole Crone counseling to Nicole Crone coaching. And as a coach, I have free reign. I can teach you courses, I can deliver memberships, that sort of thing, but you're not going to write it off and the government's not going to pay for it. And so it really gets to be this place of expansion of, like, that's possible. You can wear more than one hat. And so I think that's where we really open up the container of possibility for people of just make a second landing page that doesn't have your government regulated credentials. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah, creating that expansion for them where they see themselves outside of the governing body or the regulation, so they can see that if one little tweak going from counselor to coach is like a great example of the practical. I have a burning question that I want to ask you because you focus so much on the energetics of money. And I've seen this on YouTube. I've seen this from people who study and obsess over money and have the budgeting apps and the spreadsheet warriors. These people are so passionate about spreadsheets are the way. And I want to talk to you about the consequence of the detriment of tracking money when it comes to expanding and creating money. So give me your thoughts on spreadsheets and how they can impact your ability to create the money that you want.
Yeah. Well, I guess if I'm just being 100% honest, like I'm just not a spreadsheet person and that works for me. And I don't try and confine myself to being the energetic, spiritual manifestation expert that I am and then be like, oh, but I should put this into a spreadsheet. I have such a trust in that money is energy and I can create more and more and more of it. And the more I spend, the more I can make. And the more I give away, the more it comes back to me. And that is my belief system. Again, it comes down to belief system. For people who get really caught up in the numbers and in the spreadsheets and then that freaks them out, again, that's an energy. And now your body is like, money, freaky, don't like that. So then I would ask, like, is that actually serving you to be spending your time trying to fit yourself into a box that doesn't actually feel good? For the spreadsheet people, like fill your boots if that's what makes you feel good. And then when you feel good, your energy is higher. When your energy is higher, you're more magnetic. And then since money is energy, you could be more magnetic to money. But if fitting yourself into a spreadsheet doesn't make you feel that way, then you have to ask yourself again, what gets you into alignment? And I have my whole theory of how I think people get aligned, but I'm sure it's different for everyone. But for myself, I think it can be a detriment because it stops it's a control piece. So, and it's just like launching. People, we have the majority of our clients love to launch and like do these big launches. And I love launching because I think it creates like this hype experience for your people. And when somebody says to me, I only know 20 people who will buy this or who are watching or who filled out my poll or whatever it is, and I've got to get those 20 people in, I'm like, you're cutting off all the other people that you don't know yet, that your friends could refer you to, but they get so fixated on like, these are the numbers. And I just have to keep reminding them it can be another way, but you have to be open energetically, meaning like, I'm available. Thank you, universe, God, source, creator, whatever. And I'm available for more and trusting in that. And I think faith, I heard Amanda Francis, who wrote Rich as Fuck, say this, and I just think it's my favorite definition of faith. Faith is really, truly believing that what you want is available when there is zero proof of it coming. There's zero proof of it happening and you still believe it. And that's how I roll into everything.
So true. It's so good in that. And it reminds me of the idea around faith comes from self-concept, the ability for us to kind of expand that, and our level of faith increases with our level of self-concept that we have. And, some of the work that you do with the people that you guys serve at My Aligned Purpose, men and women, I feel as though have different beliefs around money. And it's all, some of that's tied to societal structure. Some of that is tied really to parenting. I would say more parenting than actually societal structure. And you have worked with men and women both in this arena of self-concept when it comes to the expansion of money. Mm-hmm. Tell me the differences between what you see with men believe with money and what women believe with money. And how have you seen people expand their self-concept given the fact that there's two different belief systems that they have?
Yeah, I think in my personal experience, because we have worked with men and we've got a couple of men who are in our mastermind, but mainly all women, is that it's not really different for men and women in my experience of what they think or feel about money, but across the spectrum, across society, what people believe about money is very different, truly based off of how they were raised. And I get people to see it as like a Rolodex of images in your mind. So if I was to say to you right now, Mike, when I say tree, what's the first tree you think of?
Oak.
Okay. And then if I was to
we're
say,
getting coached on here? This is great. Yeah. Coach me up. This is
and
good.
then if I was to say, Mike, I'm dog, what's the image of a dog that comes to mind?
A pug.
Right. And so we could have 1,000 people on this call right now. And even the people listening to this, before you said oak tree, you said pug, they're going to, before they even know it, their subconscious mind is giving them a tree. It's giving them a dog. So then when we say money, people aren't even aware of how fast their subconscious mind is associating an image to money. And 9 times out of 10, it's come from mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or whatever primary adult they spent the most time with as a child that had an opinion on money. And that's continued to roll down. So when people are saying like, I want to say money is so fun to make. Well, that would be like saying the dog is purple. And you're like, what? No, that my brain can't compute that. So we have to get people switching the language until the belief is there. So however you want money to feel, like if you want money to be fun, rather than saying money is fun to make, because subconsciously your body might and mind might not think money is fun to make. We have to say it's so fun. And then you've got a Rolodex again of images. If I was to say, like, tell me something fun that comes to mind for you. What's something you've ever done in your life that is fun?
Something that's fun that comes to mind for me. Water skiing. Water skiing was really fun when I did it the first time, like maybe like a decade ago when I was younger. I loved water skiing. It was so great.
Okay, even when you're describing that, you're smiling, you leaned in, right? Like there's like, yeah, like water skiing is fun. So if your brain and body knows fun, which it does, then if we say it's so fun, your brain and body are getting primed to be like, ooh, fun. I know that feeling to make money. Now we're starting to attach money to the feeling that already feels good rather than money is, and you're like, oh, money is hard to make. Money doesn't grow on trees. Money's not for me, that sort of thing. Fun to make, then you're like, you're telling yourself one thing, but your brain and body are believing something different.
Yeah, and then for me, as like we're talking now, one of the things that I'll just share with you because I think this would be good for the listeners and the viewers out there, is for me personally, I've always found it fascinating and something of a limited capacity for me to see myself making 9 figures, like the $100 million. And when people do that, I'm always like blown away, like, wow, that you accrued $100 million, like minimum. And I think personally seeing myself doing that and achieving that or acquiring that, when you were talking about the ceiling and the floor piece, that ceiling, immediately I feel the tension and I feel the contraction of ever achieving that number. And it's not so much the how, but it's like I feel the body tightening up. And is it because there's too big of a jump to see myself acquiring that number? Is it if an individual comes to you and has this really like astronomical number from where they are right now, the tightening of the body is a result of what?
Yeah. Why is it available for somebody else? But when you think about it being available for you, it's like, am I worthy of that? Could I earn that? Am I worthy of selling that many things or being such a great investor that I figured this out? Am I worthy of being the first person in my family and friend group to make that much money? I believe it with all things with money, it comes down to worthiness and our beliefs around if we're worthy.
Yeah, that's interesting because the other thing that came up as you were speaking was the how part. Like the how I feel like is a defense mechanism for a lot of people. Would you agree with that? Or is there another reason that you see that limitation for that?
Yeah, the how for sure. And I'm a big believer that we don't actually need to know the how up front. Like if we know the what and the why, so what? 9 figures, 100 million. Why? Like, why do you really want to have $100 million? Like, what is the deep, deep why? Then every single day you can ask yourself something that will move you towards that and trusting that like the how always reveals itself in hindsight. The how will reveal itself, but you've got to be so crystal clear on the what and why. Another thing that I think stops a lot of people, I know, I see it firsthand, is that people aren't even clear on what they want to do with their money. They're like, I want to make 7 figures this year. I want to make, X amount of money this year. Okay, what are you going to do with that money? Because again, money is powerless until you give it power. I can have a pile of coins that sit on my desk for years and years and years, and I don't do anything with it. And I could be walking around believing I will have more power when I have more money. And it's like, no, you give money the power. But if you are not clear on what you want to do with that money, and like placing an order to the universe, so to speak, like, oh, I want to invest more. That's not clear. Invest more. How much more? I want to take my family on a vacation. To where? What kind of vacation? Are we talking hostels or are we talking luxury resorts? Like when you get so clear on how you would like to work with this energy of money. I think it's the difference between walking into a coffee shop and saying, I'd like a hot beverage. And am I going to get tea or a matcha or a coffee? We don't know. I wasn't clear.
Right.
But if I'm like grande, matcha, latte, whatever, that's what I'm going to get.
Yeah, the details matter in that.
The details matter. So in the $100 million, how much of that are you investing, saving, spending, donating, throwing away, and getting clear on that? And then when you are clearer on what you will do with the money, the how will continue to reveal itself, because you'll be
So
like,
that reverse engineering, sorry, the reverse, I just want to make sure I understand this. So like the reverse engineering of starting with the dollar amount that you want and then working backwards to how would you spend it? What would you do with it? That all those details would allow me to move the floor to, or excuse me, the ceiling now becomes that floor.
right. And you don't have to know like down to every penny, but just being a little, I just think people aren't clear enough. They're like, I want more money. You know, we work with a lot of people who want to get to their first multiple six figures in their business. Again, they're successful doctors, coaches, teachers, RMTs, all the things over here, but figuring that out in their own business, that's what they're coming to us for. And they're coming to us and they're like, I want to know how to do this and I want to make six figures in my business. And they have like a rough idea, but we're like, no, you need to get clearer. Or they're like, I want to have this multiple six-figure business, but they have no systems put in place to be able to generate, to be able to manage that six figures coming through their business. So then the conversation comes back to like, we can have all the energy, we can have all the creativity and all the vision around the money. And if you are not indicating at all energetically that you know how to manage the money you already have or what you do with the money you already have, I just don't know how more is going to come to you. It's going to wait for you to have the capacity to manage more.
I love that. That is really well helpful. So thank you. But also, I think it's something that everybody can learn about, which is that the dollar amount is truly irrelevant if you don't know what you're going to do with it. Mm-hmm. And once you have the clarity, then the dollar amount really comes into the picture, and then things start really unfolding for you. And it just seems like to me that this domino effect really starts taking place, which to me is probably the easiest jump off point for people to really get that. Mm-hmm. And I want to take that and kind of shift this conversation a little bit inward with you. So you and Kayla did not wake up one morning and have a 7-figure business.
No. And
there are people, because I think a lot of it's due to the content that we see, the internet, the podcasts we listen to, where all this information just gives us the blueprint, the tactics, the hacks, the tips, the tricks. And I think the window of instant gratification has gotten so finite now that people expect that in 2 months, I'm supposed to go from 0 to 7 figures.
Right.
And which can happen, right? And there are people who have done it. And, maybe we talk a little bit about the back half of that question in terms of belief. But for you, you went to Australia, then you met Kayla, and I know I'm jumping some timelines here, but you guys didn't wake up one day and have a 7-figure business. And for you, you probably had some money beliefs that came up within you. And so let's start with let's call them the prehistoric money beliefs that Nicole had at 30 years old, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and then say, now, how did you and Kayla team up and create what is now a 7-figure business, and you're helping hundreds of people, women mostly, take their business and hit their first 6-figure year? What has that journey and process been like for you?
I love this question because I love to be able to share with people that I know exactly how you feel if you are experiencing money woes or feeling like there's never enough or you can't keep it or it's not available for you, because that was my life for so long. I've always considered myself, outside of me, lots of people around me always said, you're so lucky. Lucky things happen to you all the time. And I would think, I'm not lucky. I'm thinking about those things or I'm journaling about them. I've always been a journaler since I was like 10 years old. I've got all my journals here in my office. I love writing down my dreams and what I want. And then eventually they come true. And I associate that to manifestation. You think something powerfully enough and put enough energy behind it, it will come to you. And I've always been really good at manifesting things that cost money, but not actual money itself. And I don't think that I've ever actually, up until 7, 8 years ago, thought about calling in more money. I wanted experiences. I'm like, I want this trip. I want this flight. I want this concert, whatever it might be. And I had my teacher salary, and that was good enough for what it was. But when I would want something that would cost more than what my teacher salary could provide, it was the experience. It was the thing I wanted to do with the money that I would call in. And what happened for me was when I took this year off and I went to Australia, I racked up credit card debt. Nobody had ever taught me about credit cards or taught me about how much that interest was going to compound. And then I would be like really caught in this storm of owing more money than I borrowed. And so I moved back to Canada. And I've now got 3 credit cards that are maxed on credit card debt. And I moved to Victoria and I, get a teaching job here. And I'm in Victoria, which is the 3rd most expensive city in Canada. And I am struggling. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to make this work. I'm teaching yoga on the side and waitressing and teaching my school job, all to just like pay my bills and pay off the credit cards. And when I look at that in hindsight, I'm like, wow, my standards were so low. I had such low standards. I'd be like, if I can just make $5,000 this month and pay my car payment and my rent and my groceries and all my credit cards, my student loan, I'll be good to go. I wasn't setting a standard of I deserve more, I'm worthy of more. So recognizing my standards were low. I meet Kayla early 2020, like January 2020. And we met through a mutual coach who I did my coach training and Kayla did her coach training, and she introduced us and hired us onto her team. And we're meeting up in person to go to this office for a day and like do all of this intro work. And she sends Kayla and I off for lunch, and we're standing in line, and Kayla's telling me about how she has this blog called The Money Edit. She's really into investing. She read all these books and blogs on women investing, paying off their debt, and becoming wealthy and creating generational wealth through market investing. I'd never met anybody who talked to me about investing before, let alone like a woman generating her own wealth. And we're standing in line at Freshie, like getting a salad. It's my first time meeting her. And I felt compelled to tell her. I said, I've never told anybody this, not my parents, my sister, anybody, but I have 3 maxed out credit cards and I'm freaking out. Like it's keeping me up. I don't know what to do. And I thought my credit card amount was life-altering, drowning. And she said, how much do you owe? And I was like, so embarrassed. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm telling you this. I owe $15,000. And that felt earth-shattering to me. Earth-shattering because I was making like $50,000 as a teacher. So I owe like a good portion of that to credit card debt, and it just couldn't seem to go away. And Kayla said, oh, okay, well, that's doable. You can just, do this. I've got a couple strategies for you. You can either do the big snowball effect or the little snowball effect. And she tells me about these different ways and sends me to her blog, and she, telling me all about these things. And I thought, wow, I've never met a woman who knows what she's doing with money, and is so open about sharing about what she knows about her money. So I went home that day and I felt like 1,000 pounds had fallen off my shoulders because I told somebody about my credit card debt. And so then Kayla and I start working for this woman. The pandemic happens in March. By June or May rolls around and she says to us two, I've got to let you go. I can't bring you any more coaching clients. I don't know how my business is going to keep going. So basically, see you later. Have fun. Hope you figure it out. And Kayla and I called each other after that and we said, should we just create something together? And she said, I really love talking about money. And I said, well, I really love talking about manifesting. And so we had no preconceived notion of online business, of launching and funnels and tech and automation. We didn't have any of that jading what was possible. We were open canvas possibility. So I said, okay, I'm a teacher. I know how to make courses and do all that online and make it really fun and interactive. Let's make a course. We'll call it Manifesting Money Masterclass. we had no Instagram, we had no website, we had no email list, we had no funding. We were just two people who went with the feeling of what do we both really like and tell the people we know, hey, I've got some friends, some past colleagues, people I met in my travel, so on and so forth. And we put it out there, and at that first day, we sold 50 spots to Manifesting Money Masterclass and had a $10,000 launch. And I'm telling you, we thought we won the lottery. We were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We just made this up and people bought it. And from that moment on, we decided that forever, we will only create from a place of being so excited about it. Because when we were excited about it, everybody's excited about it. And I taught Kayla so much about manifesting, and she taught me so much about actual money. And then it just took off.
That story there about you guys getting excited and creating from a place of excitement, I feel like so many people miss that. Like they miss that joy and that excitement of the ideation, the innovation, the creation process when it comes to their business. I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs like get stuck in that. They just get stuck in like, oh, I'm making money, I have to keep it going. And for you to express about what I would label as a survivalist attitude of like, I have to just pay my bills, I have to just keep things going. And if I can just keep things going, then I'll be fine. To switch into, we just hit $10,000 in our first ever launch. We had no clue what we were doing, but we were just excited about it. What did it take for you to make that shift?
Yeah. So we had that $10,000 launch, and I was blown away because I was a teacher. I was paid. So that was like 3 months of teaching salary made in like one day that we put this thing out there. That to me right away was like, oh my gosh, what else is possible? Like, what if every month we made $10,000? Now there's two of us. We've got to split it, all the other things. So like, it wasn't like we each walked away with 10,000, but it was still way more than what I had earned as a teacher. And so there was that like possibility brewing in us. And because we just kept following the excitement, we were like, okay, well, what do we want to create next? We sold Manifesting Money Masterclass and ran that for 4 weeks. And then while we were doing the Manifesting Money Masterclass, we were hearing that people wanted to have businesses, and that what was blocking them from having their business was telling the people that they loved that they didn't want to be a teacher or they didn't want to do this thing, but being so afraid to walk away. So we're like, okay. And I live and breathe by the chakra system, the energy centers of the body. I'm like, okay, let's create a course called, Elevate Your Voice, Elevate Your Business. So we're going to teach everybody to access their throat chakra, say what they really want to do, how they really want to help people, and then have a business out of it. And so then that was like a $10,000 launch. And we were like, whoa, we're on a roll. And then so we sold Manifesting Money Masterclass again in August. So it was June, July, August, another $10,000 launch. And then I called Kayla and I said, I see on Instagram that there are people out there that sell year-longs with them, and they sell it for like $10,000. This is in like September, October of 2020. I'm going to put it out there and see if anybody wants to do that with us. And she was like, okay, let me know how it goes. And I said, imagine if we got 6 people and had $60,000 and we put it out on Instagram. And again, just pure excitement. Like, I want to spend a year with you. And it's been so much fun manifesting money and da-da-da-da-da. And we had 7 people sign up. And it was just like the proof just kept coming in, and everybody would say to us, like, I love being in your guys' energy, and it like, this feels fun, and I'm getting my joy back in my business. And then what started happening was everybody started asking us for business coaching. They're like, you two clearly know how to run a business and how to do this thing. Can you business coach me? So then we opened up our year-long program. We had the 7 people the first year. Then it was like 15, 22, 25. We're in our 5th year and we have 45 people in it. And it just kept growing like that. But the other thing I will say that really like mind blown emoji for me was a year into us running our business, we bought the book from Fabienne Fredrickson. I think that's how you say her last name, called Leverage. And the tagline under Leverage, talk about speak to my soul, said, overwhelmed at six figures, get your life back at seven. Now, this overwhelmed at six figures piece, we sold those, we sold those seven spots. And Kayla had just had a baby, and we were like every day, just, there was no system in place, right? Like we were like, we should have an Instagram, we should have a website, like starting to build all those things. And we were really starting to feel like we were sinking a little bit in the overwhelm. We read that book. We bought into our 2-year coaching program. And it said, so overwhelmed at six figures, get your life back at seven. And we didn't make seven figures in our first 2 years of business. We made it in 3. So we didn't make it in the 2-year time frame that we were in her coaching program. However, being in a room with a bunch of people who were just like us, who said, yeah, I was overwhelmed at six figures, now I'm at seven figures, that just, the world of possibilities started opening up for me. I had never met millionaires before. I'm from a small little town of blue collar worker parents and aunts and uncles and friends and stuff like that. I had never been teachers. I'd always been around teachers. So I wasn't around entrepreneurial millionaires. And then all of a sudden I was, and the world of possibility opened up for me. I was like, oh, okay, I can see what people do when they have more money, the opportunities that are available, the resources that are available. Of course I want that. I'm not going to deny myself of that.
With that story, looking back now at that woman that was in Australia, what would be the one thing that you would tell her?
The thing I would tell her that I really battled with at the time was it's okay to change your mind. I felt like I was letting everybody around me down and disappointing them, that I did this 6-year degree and I spent all of this student loan on school and I was such a great teacher. Everybody was like, you can't leave teaching. You're such a great teacher. And I disappointed my parents, and there were so many people that I felt I was disappointing, and I know I disappointed at that time because what they envisioned for my life was unfolding in a different way. And I wish I could go back and tell her, which I can now, go back and tell 30-year-old me, it's okay to change your mind, and it's okay to disappoint people, and it's okay to live your life in a way that maybe not other people envision for you, but to keep following the good feeling.
That's good. I love that. And it's a great way to step into our final question. And before I do that, Nicole, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for opening yourself up to sharing with people what's possible when it comes to the energetics of money and alignment and purpose. And your story and Kayla's story, that what the two of you have created, has been really phenomenal. I think gives a lot of people hope that it doesn't always have to be hard. It can be very easy. It can be fun. It can be aligned. Yeah, it can be all of those things. So I want to thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. I know the people out there watching this and listening to this podcast will as well. So thank you. The last question for you is, your business gets acquired or shuts down, and you are sitting with yourself and you have a blank piece of paper in front of you, and you're asked to write one thing to share with someone about the journey that you just went on with building your business. What would you write down on that piece of paper?
Okay, I just want to clarify, because shut down and acquired seem to give me two very different energies. So
Yeah.
Is it acquired or is it shut down?
We'll just say acquired.
Okay.
Your business is acquired. Let's try that again. Mm-hmm. So your business is acquired. Mm-hmm. And I'll phrase it this way. Your business is acquired, and you are meeting the person that just acquired your business. Mm-hmm. And it is somebody that has never ran a business before, but they liked you and they liked your business. And they're asking you to write something down on a piece of paper that they could take with them to continue running that business. What would you write down?
Ooh, this is so good. And also, what a dreamy situation. I would say be generous and continue to build community. be generous, like keep giving stuff away, keep having fun, keep inviting people in, keep building community at the heart of My Aligned Purpose. We run everything through 3 filters. Can we be generous? Is this creating freedom? And are we building community? And so I would say thank you for the freedom you're giving me. Please continue to be generous and build community.
I love that. Nicole, thank you so much for joining the show. And before we go, where can people find you? How can they find out more about you? Give us the links, give us the resources. Where can people find you?
Thanks, Mike. It's pretty straight across the board. It's My Aligned Purpose everywhere. So our podcast is My Aligned Purpose Podcast. That's a great place to start. I deliver an episode every Monday, and it's all mindset and manifestation. And then Kayla and I do an episode every Thursday called Biz Besties, and it's more like behind the scenes business talk of how we grow this thing. Our website is My Aligned Purpose. Instagram is My Aligned Purpose. And then if somebody is looking to maybe like dive into a little bit of a freebie, we have this whole really fun freebie called Frequency of Wealth, and it's audios and a wealth calendar and wealth rituals. And that's just myalignedpurpose.com/FOW for Frequency of Wealth.
Amazing. Well, we'll make sure we include that in the show notes. So thank you, Nicole, again for joining the show. And thanks to you for tuning into this episode of Built to Tell. If you like what you saw and heard, go ahead and give us a subscribe and hit that notification bell on YouTube. You can also give us a follow on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, I will see you very soon, my friends. Take care.